Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Small Cap Discoveries conference call. Today on our call, we have Andrew White, the CEO of Char Technologies. Char Technologies trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol YES. The company is trading at 14 cents with roughly 45 million shares outstanding, or about a $6 million market cap. I'd now like to hand it over to Paul Andreola.
Thanks, Trevor. Andrew, welcome. Char Technologies is a company that fell onto our radar screen a few months ago. We did have a call with you a little while ago, which got us a little bit more up to speed, but really great that you can join us today, give our subscribers a bit more information and get them to understand what Char Technologies is all about. And I understand you have a presentation. So Andrew, welcome, and I'll hand it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Paul. And thanks, Trevor, for the intro and the opportunity. Certainly happy to be here virtually and to take you and your subscribers through a little bit more detail about Char, what we're all about, and where we see the future and why we're so excited about it. The brief sort of mission vision idea is that we are a clean tech company, and we define that within our realm as industrial clean tech. So we're looking at, clean air, clean water, clean soils, and, waste reduction within an industrial setting. So that's kind of our bounds. As Trevor mentioned, we're traded on the venture under the ticker YES. We have two operating divisions. The first is Alltech Environmental Consulting. I won't spend a lot of time on Alltech except to say it's our environmental engineering services and compliance group. We've got a lot of long-standing clients. It's a nice, steady recurring revenue stream for the company. What the focus of today's presentation will be is Char Tech Solutions, which is where we have our advanced industrial clean technologies. And again, within our realm, clean tech means clean air, clean water, and this organic waste reduction and renewable energy. So my only slide on Alltech is to say that while we're industrial, we are pretty broad range industrial with our clients. And it, like I said, brings a nice recurring revenue, but it also does create a bit of a lead generation for our technology group. If through our compliance practice, we find that there are opportunities to help our clients meet regulatory requirements through technology. On the clean technology side, we really focus on a number of key verticals, food and beverage being a significant market for us. Mining has been historically. The future, the growth area is really around waste and organics processing. You see in brackets, I say including RNG, that's renewable natural gas. So I'll explain a little bit more about that and how it fits into our ecosystem. And then finally, general industrial, we've installed air scrubbers in automotive manufacturing plants here in Ontario, in aerospace manufacturing, paint manufacturing, railway tie, creosote, all sorts of interesting environmental contaminants and treatment options. So to give you an idea of what some of these systems have looked like in the past, the first one, an acid mist scrubber. This is at a Chilean copper mine in Anticoya, and it's at an electrowinning facility. So what they do is they take the copper, process it with sulfuric acid. That acid gets up into a mist, and our scrubber cleans it out of the air before it's discharged to the atmosphere. The middle one is a reverse osmosis plant that we recently delivered. We actually delivered it during March, April, and May and did the commissioning, which was obviously a bit of an extra challenge with some of the restrictions we were facing, but we got it done. And then the last one there is a membrane bioreactor. And this is the first system that was installed in the world to upgrade effluent or wastewater at a food and beverage manufacturing plant that could be reused within the facility. And the reason we are confident in that claim is Coca-Cola said they were the first to do it 2 years after we commissioned this facility. So, we're using Coke as the benchmark that they are pretty confident they thought they were the first. We know that we beat them. And so that's kind of what we have been doing. What we're most excited about is the future. And for us, the future is in what's called pyrolysis. So, you can think of it, pyro is sort of that heating word. Pyrolysis is basically just heating stuff up in the absence of oxygen. So if anyone has heard, incineration, it's not that because there's no oxygen. And if you've looked at gasification, it's not that either because gasification uses a little bit of oxygen to sustain their system. So it's a little different, and there's some really important reasons why that difference exists. But essentially what we're doing is, if you look at the bottom row, we're taking very challenging organic materials, things that, generally people are paying to get rid of. Things like what's called digestate or biosolids, so leftover from wastewater treatment plants or standard biogas plants. Things like manure and compost, and even some of the crop wastes. We put it in our pyrolysis unit, heat it up in the absence of oxygen, 500 to 900 degrees Celsius, and we create two products. One is clean energy in the form of a gas, and the other is biocarbon. So think of it like a charcoal. We can tune it to be marketable in different areas, but that's basically what it's making. And the real reason we're most excited about it is on the feedstock side, we're entering a market where there's a price that's paid, a tip fee to collect materials because it is a challenge to deal with. And on the product side, there are huge markets, whether it's Biocoal, which is one of our solid biocarbons, one of our charcoals, or renewable natural gas, which is one of the options for our gas stream. So overall, the annual market opportunity in North America alone is very attractive to us. And what we've done, this is a picture of our facility in London, Ontario. It's one of the largest pyrolysis plants in North America that's capable of processing some of these more challenging waste streams. We've run, like I said, biosolids, sludge from wastewater treatment plants, wood waste, energy crops, all sorts of things through it to demonstrate it to potential partners and clients. But the reason it has so much benefit is the size of it is such that it can go on a site where that waste is produced. So we're not shipping material to one giant central facility that has huge project financing costs because it's a $60 or $70 million plant. Our systems range between 5 million and 15 million, depending on the size. So that's a little bit more reasonable to put on site. It is carbon negative, so we're reducing greenhouse gas emissions by destroying waste and offsetting energy. We're reducing mass, so that organic waste that clients are spending money to get rid of, we're reducing the amount by about 90%. The system actually runs itself thermally, so we create all this pyrolysis gas that's filled with energy that gets recycled and burned, so that's our heat load. So we're not using natural gas or propane or other external energy sources to run the system. It's self-sustaining. And there's excess gas that we can do different things with. And then finally, the value-added carbon output. So there's two logos at the bottom here. One is CleanFire. That's our Biocoal product that I'll talk a little about. The other is Char, which is an activated carbon. So if you've got a Brita filter at home and you crack that filter open, it's filled with little black pellets. That's activated carbon. Ours, being made from things like biosolids, wouldn't go into a Brita filter, but there are a number of industrial air and gas treatment applications for it. So that's pretty important for us. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the market catalyst now. So on the feed side, biosolids is a big issue. So this is a great Vice News video you can look up, but this is 3 containers in the picture. This train has 250 containers on it that's filled with biosolids, sewage sludge from New York City, and it's stuck on a siding in Alabama because no one will accept it. The historic model for biosolids was to process it, treat it, and use it as a fertilizer. That's no longer applicable in a lot of US jurisdictions. And while being a large market both in North America and in Canada, in particular in waste to energy, which is what we're doing with the biosolids, it's very expensive. So the New York City Department of Environmental Protection spends between $50 and $100 million a year on disposing it. So it's a big issue. The next bullet, landfill costs to increase due to contamination, and the component is PFAS. Not a lot of people know what this is, but it is a significant emerging contaminant. Aaron Brockovich talks about it all the time now. Mark Ruffalo released a movie called Dark Waters, all about PFAS, and it is in biosolids. And if it's in your biosolids, you can't land apply it. So that puts a significant strain on what you can do with it. And landfills don't even want it because the PFAS will leach out into the water in the landfill that has to be treated, and then that's contaminated. So to say it's a challenge is really an understatement. And the kind of takeaway is, what is PFAS and where does it come from? It's in Teflon, it's in Gore-Tex, it's in anything that's sort of anti-stick or waterproof. And if every one of us on the call and on the video later took a blood sample, 99% of us would have it in our blood already. So that's why it's raising alarm bells, and that's why people don't want to see it in their solids. And of course, the obvious conclusion to that is pyrolysis. We've done trials with some of the largest biosolids processors in the US to showcase that through pyrolysis, we destroy the PFAS component, and the biocarbon that's left over can still go into those same fertilizer markets that the biosolids, the raw material, did. So those markets continue to exist, they continue to accept it. Great way to return nutrients to the soils, but we're destroying these emerging contaminants, which is really critical. And the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, for example, they have a goal of zero landfilling of biosolids by 2030. So the only way to achieve that goal is to get rid of these contaminants. And so they're doing a technology validation. We've made sure that we're on the consultants' review as to potential technologies, and we're recognized as one, which is fantastic. The other market catalyst is the output of renewable natural gas. So, if there's people watching who are following kind of the clean tech renewable energy space, there's two companies that really jump to mind. There's Zeebec and Greenlane. Both are in this biogas to renewable natural gas space. So that's generation one renewable natural gas. Our technology, pyrolysis to renewable natural gas, is generation two. And the most important takeaway about generation two renewable natural gas is that Énergir, the Quebec gas utility, commissioned Deloitte to do a study on the potential for renewable natural gas in the province. And to meet their targets by 2030, 80% of the renewable natural gas will have to come from pyrolysis, because the generation one, it's just using organic waste, kitchen scraps and the like, and there's just physically not enough of that material to make enough gas. So anaerobic digestion biogas is a great technology. I love it. But according to this study, there's a lot of room for other technologies to produce renewable natural gas to meet some of these targets. So that's another area that we're really excited about. So, we've got so far two really strong market pulls for this technology. The third, I mentioned it previously, is CleanFire, which is our biocoal, and that's really converting this organic waste into a coal substitute. And the most important thing is that it's a drop-in coal replacement. So that means our clients who use it don't need to change their infrastructure. It's not like converting a power plant to run on wood chips or wood pellets instead of coal. This can be converted or substituted in directly. We have been, and we've talked about it previously, been working with ArcelorMittal Dofasco in some trials. They're very interested, and the reason they're interested is in the greenhouse gas reduction. So when you burn 1 ton of coal, you get 3 tons of greenhouse gas emissions that eventually they expect to have to pay for through a carbon tax or a cap and trade or whatever the carbon pricing scheme happens to be. When you burn CleanFire, it doesn't produce greenhouse gas emissions. It's very minimal on a life cycle basis because it's made from organic waste. And the sheer volumes within the Canadian and Ontario steel and cement industries are significant. From a market perspective, we would be challenged to build enough capacity to really meet this demand. So in a lot of ways, the market is pretty wide open for us in that space. A little bit more on coal. I'm sure some of you may have read Larry Fink's comments in January that they're reducing their portfolio of coal producers, so companies that are mining and generating revenue from producing coal. Norway's sovereign wealth fund went even further and said anyone who is using coal, they'll start reducing out of their portfolio. So there is some other market pressures besides just a price on carbon that are pushing these companies to look for alternatives. So quickly on the business model and the business case. So from Char's perspective, we're first and foremost a EPCM, engineering, procurement, construction management firm, providing turnkey pyrolysis plants to our clients. That's the upfront revenue stream. Then we have recurring service and monitoring contract revenue. So we can remotely monitor and operate the facilities. There's ongoing maintenance and service that's required. And in addition, most of our clients are not in the biocarbon business. So we will be receiving a management fee, basically a revenue split, to help our clients place the biocarbon that's produced on site. And then finally, what's not shown here, but one of the models that exists is also the utility model. So that's where we'll be kind of all of the above and a co-owner, joint venture partner on larger projects. And we're in very early stage discussions on that, but that is part of our eventual plan on how we're going to continue to drive value to the company and continue to make sure that this technology is deployed pretty broad ranging. So back to that business case, a little bit more on why it's attractive to the client or to the site. Turnkey pyrolysis plant, when we're looking at a site that's producing about 40,000 tons per year of biosolids, which is pretty standard for a wastewater treatment plant, the turnkey pyrolysis plant price is $12 million. And between revenue and cost savings, the plant's seeing about $6.5 million per year in either revenue or expense reduction. So the payback is pretty quick on a technology like this. And a lot of the assumptions here, I'd certainly love to get into it in more detail, but are extremely conservative. For the energy generation row, for example, we're estimating $4 per gigajoule, which is what you and I pay, well, at least you and I, if we're in Ontario, pay for natural gas at our homes. If we're selling RNG under long-term contracts, prices are between $20 and $30 a gigajoule. So there's significant room here, but even based on the conservative assumptions, it's a good business decision. So very quickly, I'm going to go through our board, and the point here really is that our board, in terms of size and caliber, is really designed for a much larger company that we're going to grow into, and we set this up early. Fantastic group of directors. Bill White, and I always have to mention this, we share a name. He is the same age as my father, but we're not related at all. He's from the United States, and I'm from up here in Ontario. But he was the president of DuPont Canada, and he sits on a few public boards as well. Ian Anderson runs CKF Inc., which makes molded fiber products, so things like egg cartons and styrofoam meat trays. Very large Canadian private company. Lyle's got a lot of experience in the government area, so he worked for Stewardship Ontario, which basically ran the Blue Box program, so understands clean tech and recycling. Eric Butel is very knowledgeable and a great supporter on Bay Street and on the business side. James, I can take a brief moment to describe James. Paul and I were chatting before, and we talked about the energy he brings to the firm, but he started and is the founder of the Capital Pool Corporation that we did our qualifying transaction with to go public. He's been a strong supporter of the company, has invested in every round, and has really been a fantastic support. Enzo runs Gracious Living, which if you go to Home Depot and buy anything plastic, a Muskoka chair, a shelf, a drawer, it's most likely Gracious Living. And finally, Benj Gallender brings a lot of good investor relations experience and has spent a lot of time, discussing investment strategies throughout his career. Very briefly on the management team, there's myself. I founded Char based on research I was doing at the University of Toronto back in 2010, making these activated carbons from these challenging waste streams, and saw the business opportunities to launch the firm. Brian's been running the consulting group for over 20 years and just brings a wealth of experience and respect from our industrial clients. And Mark, as our CFO, the most important part from a clean tech perspective is he was the CFO of Xenon Environmental, and in his role there, he was critical in a lot of the M&A work that firm was doing before they were acquired by GE. Xenon was another TSX-V traded company. So since we're talking capital markets, a really brief overview as well. Market cap is, as of yesterday, was about just over 7 million. The ownership is structured about 30% is insiders and about 64% is public. We did just complete a small private placement a couple weeks ago. It was small, it was oversubscribed. We got a lot of really good interest. And all of the insiders, boards and management, we all participated in that round because we obviously believe in what we're doing and really see the opportunity based on where we're at. And the last piece on public markets to look at some comps. So I won't read the table out. I'll just give a brief explanation of why we look at these as comps. So Pyrolysis Canada is based out of Quebec. They're doing, as opposed to pyrolysis, which is what we do, they use a plasma arc technology. They do have some waste reduction capabilities, and I think they just signed a pretty big contract on that front. But they're also producing a commodity product, a metal, basically like a dust that you can sell. And so in a lot of ways, it's similar to our model where we've got an equipment technology that is thermal, that processes materials, and we're also producing a material that is recurring revenue-based and has a good market opportunity. Ecolomundo, again, Quebec-based company. They do pyrolysis, but it's of tires. Tires hasn't really been a market that we've been interested in for a number of reasons, but they are doing thermal technologies and processing of tires. Green Lane is, of course, in the renewable natural gas space, as is Xebec. Biorem is air pollution control through biological means, mainly odors and the like. So there is some correlation there. And Blue Metric Environmental is the only one on here that has a consulting component of their business. So it's a pretty broad range of market cap to sales, market cap to revenue. Companies that are on the list. And with that, really hopefully the takeaway here is that what we do and what we will continue to do is find innovative solutions that contribute to the circular economy. That's very important to us. And whether that's air and water pollution or organics processing, that's what we're all about. So with that, our contact information is here. I'm always open for more detailed and further discussions, and certainly welcome some conversation now. So thank you.
Perfect, Andrew. That was fantastic. I'm going to remind all the subscribers and listeners right now that obviously we are open for questions. Just use the chat function if you've got a question that you'd like me to ask Andrew. Andrew, I'm going to start with sort of taking it back to the beginning. How did you find out about this technology? How did you discover it? Sort of where was genesis of it?
Yeah, so it was like I said, it was part of my master's thesis. I was doing a master's degree in chemical engineering at the University of Toronto, and we were looking at biogas cleaning. So when I looked at the comps, both Xebec and Green Lane, that's the core of their technology, is how to clean biogas. So that's what I was looking at too. And when we went to a biogas facility, we saw that, they have this biogas that needs to be cleaned, but they also had this solid fiber that was piling up beside the digester. The farmer would use it to clean up spills here or there. The business model was supposed to be to sell it, but that market wasn't really developing. So my professor and I threw a garbage bag load into the back of his CRV. I wish we had a car with a trunk because the stuff does smell, and a CRV has no trunk. So we lived with it from the drive from London all the way to Toronto. And that was really where it started, is we then started doing thermal processing in the lab to figure out how to convert this stuff into an activated carbon that can clean the sulfur out of the biogas, the hydrogen sulfide. For people who are unfamiliar with it, it's the rotten egg smelling chemical that has to be removed. And the great part about it is we're converting the toxic hydrogen sulfide into fertilizer forms in this biochar. So it was really, circles upon circles within the circular economy of recovering sulfur and digestate. And so through that, we launched the company, we did some demos, we scaled up, we built our plant in London, and then a number of other opportunities presented themselves, primarily the biosolids treatment. Because we were designed around digestate, we just could start handling biosolids because a lot of the characteristics are similar. And then on the output side, things like Biocoal, we were actually connected to Dofasco through the Ontario Centres of Excellence. And they said, Dofasco is looking for someone who can make Biocoal. Can you guys do it? And, we took the meeting, and that's turned out to be one of our biggest growth opportunities now. So a little bit of in the lab work and I guess a little bit of serendipity here and there.
Fantastic. So give me a better sense of where you guys are in terms of commercialization now. This is more than just a prototype in a lab somewhere. You guys are actively out there engaging with customers. Give me a sense of any sales you've had, or probably more importantly, any potential sales that you think you can break out into.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've got kind of a couple of paths. And like I said, through the presentation, the first is being an EPCM, so building and delivering turnkey equipment. We were very close to a great contract back in April. But of course, March, when we're dealing with industrial clients, anything environmental is handled by the environmental health and safety group. And naturally, of course, I'm not saying they shouldn't have, but the environmental part drops off when there's a pandemic, and we're worried about keeping all our employees safe and healthy and all of that good stuff. So I see that one as back on track. In a lot of ways, our commercialization, our sales, were definitely put on pause because of the pandemic, but it really seems like they're coming back now, and we are very confident that within the next 4 months we'll see that first commercial sale come to fruition, as well as a much larger production of Biocoal. We've been producing relatively small amounts, sort of on the 20 ton. We're looking for an order of magnitude increase in how much we're producing. So I think it's important for me to clarify that while we will be producing large quantities of Biocoal, that's not our eventual model. Isn't to be the owners and operators of the plants by ourselves. But it's important at this stage to be able to produce it so that some of these large industrial clients can do their trials and prove that it works, so that we can see the long-term market contracts, which certainly allow for bankability of a larger installation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you brought up COVID. Let's talk a little bit more about that. We always ask the question right now. COVID has obviously impacted your ability to function somewhat, but is there any opportunities or any other sort of long-term problems that COVID has created, or is there opportunities that you can see from it?
Yeah, on the technology side, possibly. We've been looking at whether the kind of glut of medical waste is an opportunity for us, and I think It's been challenging to get a real good handle on what that opportunity is, because most of the medical waste generators are far too busy figuring out where they're going to get PPE from and keeping hospital capacity. So, medium term, it's certainly a possibility that we're not discounting. But primarily the opportunities are actually in our consulting group, because as environmental engineering and compliance, in a lot of ways, we're the outsourced environmental engineering group. And so we've had to find ways to pivot, whether it's helping clients get back to work through COVID safety audits, or whether it's starting to do things virtually that we used to do in person, like overall environmental compliance audits. We found ways to do that virtually, and it's really been well received. So that's where more of the opportunity for us in a COVID world lies, is the fact that we're able to quickly pivot some of our consulting offerings. On the technology side, I think if I'm just going to be frank and honest, I think it's still remains to be seen whether medical waste destruction is a sustained opportunity, if it's a short-term opportunity. So we're still focused on the biosolids in the US. That's a much bigger, longer-term market that really deserves our attention.
As you noted, you're hoping to get your first commercial sale over the next 4 months. Do you guys have the resources you need to go and do that? Like, is there, maybe a sense of what your financial status is right now, or, also, manpower, skill set, other resources? Do you have what you need right now?
Yeah, so for the most part, we do. The nice thing about having a environmental technology company that needs engineers and a consulting company that needs engineers is we have some ability to do some crossover and really deploy our human resources effectively. But one of the drivers behind the small private placement was to ensure that we could have or will have the proper capacity to deliver on these projects. So besides just shoring up the balance sheet a little bit, that will allow us to bring in all the resources that we need. We do all of our manufacturing is subcontracted, so it's not like we need a large manufacturing facility that may or may not sit idle. That brings a lot of risk to it. We're a pretty lean and flexible team with project management and engineering. And using some of these great subcontractors that can build really high quality equipment for us to help deliver the product.
Give me a sense of really, is there IP that you guys have as your secret sauce, and how much of what you have to put together is sort of off the shelf? How hard is this to sort of replicate?
Yeah, and it's an interesting question, because on the face of it, having a giant tube that rotates in a box that you don't let any oxygen in, and you put some burners underneath it, seems relatively simple and relatively straightforward. So there's a couple of areas that we do have IP that is important. Part of it is understanding, as we get into the higher temperature ranges, the 800, 850 degrees Celsius, the way heat transfer happens changes. And so we've got a very deep understanding of that. If you look at, some of our competitors that are specifically in pyrolysis of biosolids, and, to help the Google searches, you can look up Core Infrastructure, or you can look up Bioforce Tech. They're not pushing that temperature boundary, and that temperature boundary is really, really important to get rid of some of these contaminants. So that does give us a very strong competitive advantage. The other is, because of the way the system's designed, it can be very robust in handling material, so it doesn't get jammed up. It doesn't take 10 PhDs with their lab coats, turning dials. It's a very robust, easy to manage process. So that's on the equipment side. On the process side, our IP is twofold. We do have patents on producing biocarbon products from some of these feedstocks. And in areas where it would be in our view, too challenging to protect what we're doing by publishing a patent and basically telling everyone what we're doing. We keep that internal on the trade secret side of things. And really the analogy is that, we've got an oven that works really, really well and works, better than other ovens, but we're also generating the recipe book. What ingredients are you putting in, at what temperatures, under what conditions, for how long, to produce what products. And that's really a lot of important internal knowledge.
Mm, cool. So what do you think a customer is looking for to conclude that they should buy your product? What is that trigger point?
Yeah, the number one issue, if we're talking about waste reduction, is really how much they're paying to get rid of it. Is it $1 million problem or is it a $5 million problem? So that'll really drive the first decision to look at a technology like this. The second is, what else can we do on site? So, the project that we're in sort of detailed discussions with is, we're producing this gas energy. Well, that gas can go into the boilers that are currently using natural gas, and by reducing the natural gas consumption, you're reducing more OPEX because you're not buying the gas, but you're also reducing your carbon footprint, your CO2 emissions. So a client who has sort of a vision on, sustainability, on carbon neutrality, this is really a great way to get thermal energy into a plant without, or while allowing them to reduce CO2 emissions. And that's really, really important, because you can convert certain things within a plant. You can add variable frequency drives to reduce your electricity consumption. But when it comes to generating heat in an industrial setting, it's really tough to do it with electricity. So you're really still using gas. And so if we're producing a renewable natural gas product on site by processing waste, it really brings in a number of value added opportunities.
Great. So what do we talk about a bit about the financials of the business? You did do this financing, I think it was $650,000. Just give me a sense. Do you have any debt? Roughly how much do you have in the bank? And kind of, if there is, what's your burn? What's your monthly burn?
Yeah, so it was actually $695.
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
We went out for 500, but we had a really good opportunity to bring sort of a smaller Canadian institutional investor on board, and we really wanted to make sure we were making room for that. Our last financials had about 250,000 in the bank. That had been a sustained number since January, and it was sustaining through until we did our financing. So we've been really effective at managing cash over the last 12 months, particularly over the last 8 months. And on the debt side, we don't have any debt at the moment. Certainly as we look for larger projects and there's opportunities to either participate as a partial owner of a facility or other ways of helping deliver to our clients, we're always evaluating potential debt options, but at the moment we don't have any debt.
Okay, great. Look, I think we covered most of the things here. You're a relatively new business. You've never been the CEO of a public company before, I understand. You're kind of learning as you go here. What keeps you up at night?
Yeah, I mean, there's that. Where does the list start, I guess? I mean, there's always something to be concerned about. But, honestly, the one at the moment is getting to market faster. I know that at the moment, especially in the biosolid space, but really in pyrolysis in general, in producing biocoal, we are ahead of the game in North America. But there's always that nagging fear that someone else is quietly sneaking up on you. It's a pretty small, tight-knit community of renewable natural gas and pyrolysis. It's fairly specific, but there's always that fear that someone is coming out of nowhere. I don't have any reason to suspect someone's there, but I think that's probably my biggest, what keeps you up at night is pushing things faster, getting to market faster, getting that first market traction, so we can really see this thing accelerate as quickly as we know it will. That's got to be the biggest, who's out there.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything you can do to make it go faster? If you had more money, if you had more people, if you had, more awareness, what if anything can help that?
Yeah, I mean, we've I think very effectively operated in a startup resource constrained environment. We built our plant in London, processed, operated it, it's fully commissioned, between financings and government funding, we've raised just over $5 million over the life cycle of the company. So the amount that we've been able to do with a very constrained budget, I think is a great testament, not necessarily to me, but to the whole team. And so absolutely, if we had a bit more visibility, had a bit more market knowledge, people knowing about us, and a little bit more money, we could definitely push things forward a lot quicker. It would help with alternative models for delivery of equipment, instead of, needing to rely on a capital sale or a partnership. We could throw in a bit of a lease to own, a self-finance opportunity, in collaboration with banks or other lenders, but they usually want you to take a little piece. So there's definitely a lot more that we could do with more resources. I think with the resources we have, we will deliver on these next two big projects, and that's going to be a pretty big inflection point for us. But certainly if we had a little more money in the bank today, we could be doing a little bit more to get to the market faster, for sure.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I mean, we've seen a fantastic market reaction to companies like Zebek and some others that are working in the space. So hopefully that's an example of what might happen to you guys once you start getting some traction. Andrew, we sort of run out of questions here, which is a good thing. So what we always like to do is give you an opportunity to, have everyone leave with a key, 1 or 2 bullet points that you think everybody should leave with. So, have at it. What should we leave here knowing about Char?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's kind of 2 things that we can talk about. The first, to carry on with what you were just saying, the market has really reacted well to some of the comparables to Char, and I think we're just a little bit earlier than those companies are. So I think there is a really good opportunity if we follow, a similar path of deployments to get to that point. And the other is, this is a technology that is robust, and it has such strong market pull on the feedstock, the need to process it, the challenge, the real issue that feedstock is, and really good market opportunities on the output. So, we've got market pull in all these great directions to really push this technology forward. The old business school adage of, is it a vitamin or a painkiller? Like, this is a painkiller for a couple different ailments. So that's why we're really, really excited about it.
Andrew White, CEO of Char Technologies. Andrew, thank you so much for being with us today. Maybe you can just mention here again, if somebody needs more information, your website address.
Yeah, our website address is chartechnologies.com. You'll have all the contact details. I'm always available to have deeper discussions with people who are interested. And I just want to thank you, Paul and Trevor, and everyone, I guess, who's watching, for having me here today.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Char Technologies, YES on the Venture Exchange. Trevor, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
On the behalf of Small Cap Discoveries, we thank you again, Andrew, for joining us today, and we're looking forward to following up with you again in the future.
Thanks, Trevor. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.